Thanks very much for being with us this morning. My name is Richard Horton. I'm editor of the Lancet. Welcome to an on-the-record press conference to launch this report on health in the occupied Palestinian territory. We believe it's the most comprehensive and up-to-date assessment of Palestinian health in recent years. The purpose of this report is to change the way politicians, policymakers, professionals and the public view and discuss the predicament of people living in the occupied territory. Let me start by introducing Professor Rita Giacomin from the Institute at Birzeit University, who will talk about health status and health services in the occupied Palestinian territory. Rita.
In this first article of the Lancet series on Palestinian health conditions and services, we describe the demographic characteristics, health status, and health services of Palestinians living in the occupied Palestinian territory and the way they have been modified by 60 years of continuing warlike conditions and 40 years of Israeli military occupation. We review the disjointed and inadequate public health and health services response to health problems. Finally, we outline the implications of our findings for the protection and promotion of health. This is the West Bank, where 2.3 million people live, and the Gaza Strip, that tiny little thing down under, where 1.4 million people live, both in yellow, completely separated by the white, which is Israel. 40% of the population in the West Bank and on the Gaza Strip are refugees of the 1948 and 1967 wars. It is estimated that there are 9 million Palestinians scattered all over the globe. Drawing on the UNDP Human Security Framework to understand the effects on health and well-being of the socio-political conditions in the occupied Palestinian territory, we used conventional indicators such as infant mortality rates, stunting among children, prevalence of diseases, and death and injury due to Israeli army violence. A survey was completed in 2005 using the World Health Organization instrument, showed that life quality in the occupied Palestinian territory proved to be lower than that in almost all other countries included in the WHO Quality of Life field trials. The first key message is that counting dead bodies and injuries is necessary but not sufficient. We need to assess the impact of conflict on the living, on all who are experiencing the effects of warlike conditions and who are living between the ease-disease continuum. That's the majority of the population. We need to recognize that in the occupied Palestinian territories, the home front is the battlefront. I can't emphasize this more, because that's our daily life. Battlefront is at your doorstep, where people endure the social suffering of war daily. Ultimately, there is a need to address the root cause of ill health in the occupied Palestinian territory. Humanitarian aid is not enough. We need to address Israeli military occupation of Palestinian land and the severe violations of human rights, including health rights. Thank you very much.
Palestinians living in the occupied Palestinian territory lack the basic security that would allow them to be healthy and flourish as a society. Our far-reaching aggregation of data demonstrates that the health of Palestinians is compromised by threats to their security. We include statistics on deaths, injuries, home demolitions, torture, imprisonment, restrictions on access to electricity, water and trade, and restrictions on the movement of people. What they reveal is a situation of dire insecurity. If we, as a medical and public health community, mean to take on social determinants of health, if we're serious about this challenge, then will we address them in the occupied Palestinian territory? We offer the first carefully corroborated synthesis of the threats to Palestinian life and well-being. This table, which is table 1 in your paper, lists the data sources. By pulling together data from Israeli and Palestinian NGOs, international agencies, and news agencies, our paper provides an authoritative view of threats to health and human security that have intensified since 2000. In earlier periods, during the first uprising in 1987 up until 2000, there were more than 50 Palestinians injured for each Palestinian killed by the Israeli military. In the second uprising since 2000, there have been about 6 Palestinians injured for each Palestinian killed. Among the possible reasons for this change is the use of increasingly lethal tactics by the Israeli military, shown by the high ratio of head and upper body injuries in the second uprising. Poverty rates in 2007 were 51.8% in Gaza and 19.1% in the West Bank, and they're likely to have increased. Demonstrating the dependence on foreign assistance, when food aid and remittances are excluded from these poverty rates climbed to 79.4% in Gaza and 45.7% in the West Bank. The international community so far has not been preventing threats to human security. Our efforts as an international community have worked to target effects, not their causes. We recognize that very few human security threats can be mitigated by technical health sector solutions. Most threats will require social and political solutions that are well beyond the capacity of the health sector. The analysis in this paper will inform this process by making the improvement of health and human security a key priority and a potential measure for success of any plan. Human security is a necessary foundation upon which health for the Palestinians must be built. It is also a requirement for the development and flourishing of Palestinian society.